Chief Adebayo Ogunlai sat behind his imported mahogany desk on the 45th floor of his office building in Victoria Island. Staring at the Lagos skyline, he had helped transform over 5 decades. At 75 years old, he had built an oil and gas empire worth 450 billion Nigerian nairas. His company's pipeline stretched across the Niger Delta. His refineries processed millions of barrels, and his influence reached the highest levels of Nigerian government. His buildings stood tall across Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt, monuments to his vision and relentless work ethic. But on this humid December morning, none of that mattered. The man sitting across from him, Private Investigator Detective Emeka Nwankwo, had just delivered news that made Chief Adebayo's carefully constructed world shatter like broken glass. Detective Emeka slid a brown envelope across the polished desk, his expression grim. Inside were photographs that Chief Adebayo initially couldn't process. A young woman with warm brown skin and thick natural hair pulled into a simple bun. She wore clothes that had clearly seen better days, standing in line at what appeared to be a food distribution center. Another photo showed her sleeping on a narrow mat in a crowded room filled with other women. The final image captured her washing dishes in an industrial sink, soap suds covering her slender arms up to her elbows. Chief Adebayo's hands began to shake as he studied the young woman's face. Those eyes, that slight dimple in her left cheek, when she smiled at someone off camera, the graceful way she held her neck even while doing menial labor. It was like looking at a ghost from 20 years ago. "That's impossible," Chief Adebayo whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the air conditioning. "Zara is supposed to be living in Lekki with Folake. She's supposed to be preparing for university. She's supposed to have everything she needs." Detective Emeka leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Chief, I've been doing this work for 28 years. I followed the address you gave me, the one where you've been sending money all these years. That's a mansion in Lekki Phase 1 worth 350 million Nigerian nairas. Folake Adeyemi lives there with her 2 biological children, both attending Corona School in Victoria Island at 4 million Nigerian nairas per term each." He paused, letting the weight settle. "But Zara, she's been living a Hope of Lagos shelter in Mushin for the past 2 years. Before that, I trace her to a 1-room apartment in Ajigunle. The landlord remembers her well. Said Folake kept the girl isolated, rarely let her outside. Then 2 years ago, on the girl's 18th birthday, Folake threw her out with nothing. No notice, no explanation, no money. Just gone." Chief Adebayo felt his chest tighten. His doctor had warned him about stress, about his blood pressure, but nothing could have prepared him for this moment. For 20 years, he had faithfully sent money every single month, 20 million Nigerian nairas, transferred on the first of each month without fail. Not once had he missed a payment. Not once had he questioned whether Folake was doing right by his granddaughter. He had trusted her because she was family, because she had come to him in his darkest hour with open arms and promises that sounded so reasonable. The day his daughter Adiz died remained the worst day of Chief Adebayo's life. Adiz had been his only child, his pride and joy, a brilliant young woman who worked as a midwife at Lagos University Teaching Hospital and had dreams of opening her own maternal health clinic in underserved communities. She had married Tun Adeyemi, a kind man who worked as a secondary school teacher and community organizer in Surulere. They had been so happy together, so full of plans for their future. Then Tun was killed during an armed robbery at a filling station, gunned down by thieves who wanted the 50,000 Nigerian nairas in his wallet. Adiz had been 6 months pregnant. The grief nearly destroyed her, but she held on for the baby growing inside her. She held on through those final 3 months, determined to bring her daughter into the world. But severe complications during childbirth took her life even as baby Zara took her first breath. Chief Adebayo had been in that hospital room at LUTH, watching the doctors fight desperately to save his daughter, while nurses whisked the crying newborn away to the NICU. He had failed to protect Adiz, failed to keep her safe, failed to prevent the unthinkable. His wife had died 5 years earlier from cancer, and now his only child was gone too. In the days after Adiz's funeral at Ikoyi Cemetery, Chief Adebayo could barely function. He was a 73-year-old widower who had just buried his only child. Taking care of a newborn seemed impossible, especially with his demanding business schedule and his own crushing grief. That's when Folake appeared. She was Tun's older sister, a woman Chief Adebayo had met only 3 times before, once at the traditional marriage, once at the white wedding, and once at Tun's funeral. She came to his Victoria Island home with kind words and what seemed like a reasonable proposal. She would raise Zara as her own, give the baby a stable home with her own 2 children, ages 5 and 7, who could be like siblings to the baby. Chief Adebayo would maintain financial responsibility, of course, because that's what Adiz would have wanted. Folake made it all sound so perfect, so right, so much like the answer to an impossible problem. Your brother would have wanted this, Chief Adebayo remembered telling her, his voice hollow with grief. Tun loved Adiz so much. This baby is all we have left of them both. Folake had nodded solemnly, taken his hand, and promised to love Zara like her own flesh and blood. She promised to send photos regularly, to keep him updated on every milestone, to make sure the child knew who her grandfather was. Chief Adebayo set up the arrangement immediately through his lawyers at Olaniwan Ajayi LP. He would send 20 million Nigerian nairas monthly to an account established in Zara D's Ogunlai's name, but managed by Folake Adeyemi as legal guardian. Over 20 years, that amounted to more than 5 billion Nigerian nairas. Money to ensure his granddaughter had everything she needed: education, health care, clothes, opportunities, a future that would have made Adiz proud. He signed papers giving Folake legal guardianship, while maintaining his financial responsibility and the right to visit. But Folake had gently suggested that visits might confuse a child, might make attachment difficult. Let her settle into a routine first. Folake had said, her voice so caring, so understanding. Let her feel secure with us. We can arrange visits when she's older, when she can understand the situation better. Chief Adebayo, drowning in his own pain and guilt, had agreed. He told himself he was doing the right thing. He told himself this was what Adiz would have wanted. He told himself that money could provide what his grief-stricken presence couldn't. Now, staring at photos of his granddaughter sleeping in a homeless shelter, Chief Adebayo understood the magnitude of his failure. He hadn't just been sending money into a void. He had been funding Folake's luxurious lifestyle, while Zara suffered in ways he couldn't yet fully comprehend. I need to see her, Chief Adebayo said, standing abruptly. His assistant tried to stop him at the door, reminding him of meetings with the Minister of Petroleum and conference calls with international partners. But Chief Adebayo brushed past her. Cancel everything. Cancel the entire week, if you have to. Detective Emeka followed close behind as they took the private elevator down to the underground car park where Chief Adebayo's armored Mercedes S-Class waited, a necessity for men of his wealth and status in Lagos. His driver, Musa, had been with him for 30 years and knew better than to ask questions when he saw the look on his boss's face. The drive from Victoria Island to Mushin took over an hour through Lagos traffic. Chief Adebayo watched the neighborhoods change outside his tinted windows. The gleaming towers and manicured landscapes of Victoria Island gave way to the more modest, but still comfortable areas of Yaba, then to the dense, chaotic energy of Mushin, where buildings crowded together and street traders hawked everything from plantain chips to phone chargers. Hope of Lagos Shelter occupied a renovated church building with fading yellow paint and a hand-painted sign advertising free meals and emergency housing for women and children. Chief Adebayo had donated to places like this over the years, written checks at charity galas to ease his conscience, but he had never actually visited one. He had never truly understood what desperation looked like up close. He felt shame burning in his chest as he stepped out of his luxury car onto cracked pavement, aware of how out of place he looked in his 800,000 Nigerian nairas or Menegildo Zegna suit. Inside, the shelter was clean but worn. Metal beds lined the walls of what had once been the church sanctuary. Women of all ages moved about quietly, some tending to small children, others just staring at nothing with the glazed look of those who had seen too much. The smell of industrial cleaner, mixed with cooking beans and rice from somewhere in the back. A woman in her 60s with steel-gray locks and warm eyes approached them. Her name tag read, Mama Chidinma, Director. She carried herself with the quiet authority of someone who had dedicated her life to helping others. Good afternoon, she said, her voice carrying the melodic accent of someone from Anambra State. "How may I help you?" Chief Adebayo cleared his throat, suddenly feeling like a small boy despite his wealth and status. "I'm looking for Zara Ogunlai. I was told she's staying here." Mama Chidinma's expression shifted from professional courtesy to surprised recognition. She knew who Chief Adebayo was. Everyone in Nigeria knew Chief Adebayo Ogunlai's face from newspaper covers and business magazines, from photos at presidential dinners and international conferences. "May I ask what this is regarding?" she said carefully, protectively. "I'm her grandfather," Chief Adebayo said, and the words felt strange on his tongue, foreign after 20 years of absence. Mama Chidinma studied him for a long moment, her eyes seeing past the expensive suit to something deeper. Then she nodded slowly. "She's in the kitchen. Come with me." She led them through a narrow hallway plastered with thank you notes from former residents and photos of women who had successfully transitioned to stable housing and employment. They entered a large institutional kitchen where several women prepared food for the evening meal. Huge pots of jollof rice, trays of fried plantain, and vats of chicken stew. And there, at the industrial sink with her hands submerged in soapy water, stood his granddaughter. Zara was tall and slender, probably about 5 feet 8 inches, with her mother's high cheekbones and graceful neck. She wore jeans that were slightly too short and a faded donated sweatshirt that read Lagos Marathon 2022. Her natural hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore no jewelry or makeup. But even in these circumstances, there was something in the way she carried herself. Quiet dignity, unbroken despite everything. She laughed at something another woman said, her face lighting up briefly before returning to the serious work of scrubbing a large pot. Chief Adebayo's heart broke, watching her. This was supposed to be a young woman preparing for university, maybe attending parties with friends, worrying about normal 20-year-old things. Instead, she was washing dishes in a homeless shelter just to earn her next meal. "Zara," Mama Chidinma called gently in Igbo-accented English, "could you come here for a moment, Eneni?" Zara dried her hands on a towel and turned around. When she saw Chief Adebayo and Detective Emeka standing there in their expensive suits, confusion crossed her face. She walked over cautiously, the way someone might approach a situation they didn't fully understand but knew might change everything. "Yes, Ma," Zara said softly, her voice educated despite everything, her mother's careful diction somehow surviving 20 years of neglect. Up close, Chief Adebayo could see Adiz even more clearly. The shape of her face, the way she held her head, even the cautious intelligence in her eyes. His daughter lived on in this young woman, and he had abandoned her to strangers and cruelty. "Do you know who I am?" Chief Adebayo asked, his voice cracking despite his efforts to remain composed. Zara studied his face carefully, searching for something familiar. Then she shook her head slowly. "No, sir. Should I?" The words hit Chief Adebayo like a physical blow. Should she know her own grandfather? Yes. Should she recognize the man who was supposed to protect her? Absolutely. Should she have grown up knowing she had family who loved her? Without question. "I'm Chief Adebayo Ogunlai," he said quietly. "I'm your grandfather. Your mother, Adiz, was my daughter." Zara's expression shifted through several emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, disbelief, something that might have been hope, then a protective shuddering. "That's not possible," she said, taking a small step back. "Aunt Folake told me my grandfather wanted nothing to do with me. She said you blamed me for my mother's death. She said you gave me away because you couldn't stand to look at me." The room tilted slightly. Chief Adebayo reached out to steady himself against the doorframe. Detective Emeka moved closer, ready to catch him if needed. Mama Chidinma brought a chair, but Chief Adebayo waved it away. He needed to stay standing for this. "That's a lie," Chief Adebayo said, his voice gaining strength through sheer fury at what had been done to this child. "I have never blamed you for anything. I have sent money every single month since you were born. 20 million Nigerian nairas every month for 20 years. Over 5 billion Nigerian nairas total." Zara stared at him like he was speaking a completely foreign language. "I don't understand," she whispered. "What money? I've never seen any money. I don't even have a bank account. I don't have any documents at all." Chief Adebayo pulled the envelope from Detective Emeka, the one with bank statements and transfer records. 20 years of documented payments. Every single month. 20 million Nigerian nairas deposited into an account established in Zara D's Ogunlai's name. But the account manager, the person with access and authorization to use those funds, was listed as Folake Adeyemi, legal guardian. Zara's hands trembled as she looked at the papers. Other women in the kitchen had stopped working. Sensing something important, something life-changing was happening. This says 5 billion Nigerian nairas. Zara said, her voice barely audible. Where is it? Why am I here? Why do I have nothing? Chief Adebayo felt tears he hadn't cried since Adi's funeral began to well up in his 75-year-old eyes. That's what I'm going to find out, he promised, his voice shaking with rage and grief and determination. And whoever stole your future, whoever took what was meant for you and left you here suffering, is going to pay for every single day you've gone without. Can you imagine? This billionaire sent 20 Nigerian nairas million every single month for 20 years. That's 5 billion Nigerian nairas naira, thinking his granddaughter was living in luxury. But she's been washing dishes and is sheltered just to eat. She's been sleeping on a MAT, wearing donated clothes, while her Aunt Folake was living in a 350 Nigerian nairas million mansion in Lekki. If this is making your blood boil right now, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Comment below. What would you do if you found out someone stole billions from your child? Next chapter reveals what happened during those 20 years of lies and isolation. And trust me, it gets worse before justice comes. Share this video right now. Turn on notifications because this story of betrayal and redemption will shake you. The next hours passed in a blur that Chief Adebayo would remember for the rest of his life. He insisted Zara come with him immediately, but she was hesitant, frozen by 20 years of conditioning that told her to trust no one, to expect nothing, to believe she deserved only the scraps others threw away. Mama Chidinma, bless her heart, pulled Zara aside and spoke to her quietly in Igbo. Chief Adebayo couldn't hear the words, but he saw Zara's expression shift as the older woman held her hands and spoke with the authority of someone who had seen too much suffering to let it continue when there was a chance for something better. Whatever Mama Chidinma said worked, because Zara finally nodded and agreed to go with her grandfather. She gathered her belongings from the dormitory area where she slept, a small backpack containing 2 changes of clothes, a worn copy of jam preparation book with notes in the margins, toiletries in a clear plastic bag, and a single photograph in a cracked frame. Chief Adebayo glimpsed the photo as Zara carefully placed it in her bag. It was Adi's, young and radiant in her nursing uniform, smiling at the camera with hope in her eyes. His chest constricted at the sight. Aunt Folake gave me this when she threw me out, Zara said quietly, noticing his gaze. She said, "Here's your mother since you loved her so much. It was the only thing of hers I've ever had." The cruelty of it. Giving a girl one photograph of the mother she never knew as a parting gift while throwing her into the streets made Chief Adebayo's hands clench into fists. But he forced himself to stay calm. Zara needed stability right now, not more anger, even if that anger was on her behalf. As they walked to the car, Zara moved slowly, as if her legs didn't quite trust that this was real. Mama Chidinma hugged her tightly at the door. "You be strong, Eneni. You deserve this. You deserve everything good. Don't let anyone make you feel small again." Zara nodded, blinking back tears. "Thank you, Mama, for everything. For seeing me when no one else did. I saw you because you shine, my dear. You always have, even when you try to hide it." The drive back to Victoria Island was quiet at first. Zara sat in the back seat of the Mercedes, staring out the tinted windows at Lagos passing by. The crowded streets of Mushin giving way to more organized chaos of Yaba, then the tree-lined streets of Ikoyi, and finally the gleaming towers and waterfront properties of Victoria Island. She had lived in Lagos her entire life, but had seen so little of it, confined first to one room in Ajigunle, then to the shelter in Mushin. Chief Adebayo tried to make conversation, to bridge the impossible gap of 20 lost years, but words felt inadequate. What could he say? "I'm sorry" didn't cover 2 decades of absence. "I didn't know." rang hollow. He should have known, should have checked, should have demanded to see his granddaughter regardless of Folake's excuses. "Where are we going?" Zara finally asked, her voice small. "My home," Chief Adebayo said. "You're home now. I have a penthouse in the Eco Pearl Towers. It's very different from what you're used to, but it's safe, and it's yours for as long as you want it." Zara nodded but said nothing. Chief Adebayo could see her reflection in the window. She looked terrified and hopeful in equal measure. The Eco Pearl Towers rose 70 stories above Victoria Island, luxury apartments for Lagos's wealthiest residents. Chief Adebayo's penthouse occupied the entire top floor, accessed by a private elevator that required a key card. When the doors opened directly into his living room, Zara gasped softly. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Lagos, the Atlantic Ocean stretching to horizon on one side, the glittering city sprawling in every direction on the others. The space was decorated with expensive Nigerian art, custom Italian furniture, and carefully curated pieces from Chief Adebayo's travels. Everything spoke of wealth and taste, of a life Zara had never imagined existed, let alone that she had any claim to. She stood just inside the elevator, seeming to shrink, as if afraid to touch anything or leave marks on the pristine marble floors. "It's okay," Chief Adebayo said gently. "You can walk around. You can touch things. This is your home now." Before Zara could respond, a woman in her 50s emerged from the kitchen area, wiping her hands on a towel. Ngozi had been Chief Adebayo's housekeeper for over 20 years, a warm-hearted woman from Enugu who managed his household with quiet efficiency and genuine care. She took one look at Zara, the donated clothes, the overwhelmed expression, the way the girl held herself like she was ready to run at any moment, and immediately understood that something extraordinary was happening. Ngozi had worked for Chief Adebayo long enough to know about Adiz, about the granddaughter who supposedly lived with relatives, about the monthly transfers that never missed. "This is Zara," Chief Adebayo said, his voice thick with emotion. "My granddaughter. She'll be staying with us." Ngozi's eyes widened for just a moment. Then she smiled warmly and approached Zara with open arms. "Welcome home, Eneni. Welcome home." She hugged Zara gently, and Chief Adebayo saw his granddaughter's rigid shoulders begin to soften slightly. "Let me show you to your room," Ngozi said, taking Zara's small backpack. "You must be tired. Would you like something to eat? I have jollof rice, or I can make you anything you want." Anything is fine," Zara said quietly. "Thank you, Ma." "No need for Ma. My dear, just call me Auntie Ngozi." The guest room Ngozi showed Zara to was larger than the entire apartment Zara had shared with Folake in Ajigunle. A king-size bed dominated the space, with crisp white linens and more pillows than one person could possibly need. An en-suite bathroom featured a deep soaking tub and a separate rain shower. The closet was currently empty, but was the size of a small bedroom itself. Zara stood in the doorway, not entering. "This is too much," she whispered. "No, child," Ngozi said firmly but kindly. "This is what you should have had all along. Now I'll run you a bath. You take your time, relax, and when you're ready, come out and eat. No rush, no pressure. This is your home." After Ngozi left, Zara finally stepped into the room. She set her backpack carefully on a chair, then walked to the window. From this height, Lagos looked almost beautiful, the chaos and struggle hidden by distance, leaving only lights and possibility. Chief Adebayo stood in his study. Phone pressed his ear, making the calls that would change everything. First, he dialed Barrister Alyamide Fashola, the best forensic accountant and lawyer in Lagos, a man who had helped Chief Adebayo navigate complicated business deals and hostile takeovers for 30 years. "Alyamide, I need you to trace every single kobo of 5 billion Nigerian nairas," Chief Adebayo said without preamble. "I need to know where it went, what it bought, who benefited, and I need it yesterday." 5 billion Nigerian nairas? Even Alyamide, who dealt with massive sums regularly, sounded surprised. "What's this about, Chief?" "Someone stole from my granddaughter. Someone I trusted, and I want her to feel the full weight of what she's done." Second call went to his personal doctor, a friend who had been warning him about stress for years. "Marcus, I need you to come to the penthouse tomorrow. I need a full medical evaluation for my granddaughter, 20 years old, been living in extreme conditions. I need to know if she's healthy, what she needs, everything. Third call was to his banker at Zenith Bank headquarters. Kenneth, I need you to freeze account number 384-756-2910. Yes, the trust account in my granddaughter's name. Freeze it immediately. No withdrawals, no transfers. And I want all record from the past 20 years printed and on my desk by tomorrow morning. The fourth call was the hardest. Chief Adebayo dialed the number he had called monthly for 20 years. The number Folake had provided for emergencies only. She answered on the third ring, her voice bright and fake, with that exaggerated cheerfulness some Nigerians put on when speaking to wealthy people. Chief Adebayo, what a pleasant surprise. Is everything all right? It's not yet the first of the month, so I thought, I found Zara, Chief Adebayo said, his voice cold enough to freeze the Lagos humidity. There was a pause, just a fraction too long. What do you mean? Zara is right here with... Stop lying. Chief Adebayo's voice cut through her words like machete. I found her in a homeless shelter in Mushin. I found her washing dishes for her next meal. I found her wearing donated clothes and sleeping on a mat. So I'm going to ask you one time, Folake, and you better think very carefully before you answer. Where's the 5 billion Nigerian nairas I sent for my granddaughter? Another pause, longer this time. When Folake spoke again, the fake warmth had drained from her voice, replaced by something harder. I don't know what she told you, but I provided for that girl. She had a roof over her head. Food to eat. The money was used appropriately. Then you'll have no problem providing receipts, Chief Adebayo said. Bank statements, bills, school records, medical expenses. I want documentation for every single kobo. My attorney will be in touch. He hung up before she could respond. His hands were shaking, with rage, with grief, with the overwhelming weight of 20 years of failure. That night, Chief Adebayo couldn't sleep. He wanted his penthouse, checking on Zara every hour like a worried parent with a newborn. She slept fitfully even in the comfortable bed, as if her body couldn't quite believe it was real, as if she expected to wake up back on the thin mat at the shelter. Around 3 a.m, he found her sitting in the dark living room, staring out at the city lights reflecting off the Atlantic Ocean in the distance. Can't sleep either? Chief Adebayo asked gently, sitting in a chair across from her. Zara shook her head. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up back at Hope House, that this is some kind of dream, or worse, some kind of trick. It's real, Chief Adebayo assured her. And I promise you, Zara, you're never going back there. You're never going to be hungry or cold or alone again. Zara was quiet for a long moment, her silhouette outlined against the window. She told me you hated me, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Aunt Folake. She said my birth killed my mother and you blame me for it. She said you wanted nothing to do with Tun's family after he died. She said the only reason she took me in was out of Christian charity, even though I was a burden she didn't deserve. Chief Adebayo felt rage building in his chest, the kind that made him want to break things, to drive to Lekki right now and confront Folate with his bare hands. But he forced himself to breathe, to stay calm for Zara's sake. None of that is true, he said firmly. Your mother died because of medical complication that no one could have prevented. It wasn't your fault. It was nobody's fault. And I never, ever blamed you. You're all I have left of Adiz. You're precious to me, even though I've done a terrible job of showing it. Zara looked at him with those eyes that were so much like her mother's. Why didn't you come see me in 20 years? Why didn't you visit even once? It was the question Chief Adebayo had been asking himself since yesterday morning. The question that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Because I was a coward, he admitted, his voice rough with emotion. Because I was drowning in grief, and I convinced myself that money was enough, that as long as I sent those transfers every month, I was fulfilling my responsibility. Folake told me that visits would confuse you, that you needed stability, that I should wait until you were older. And I believed her because it was easier than facing my own pain. I let her build a wall between us, and I told myself I was doing the right thing. But you sent money? Zara asked, still trying to understand. Every month. every month. 20 million Nigerian nairas. I have the bank records to prove it. The account was in your name, but Folake was the manager. She was supposed to use it for your care, your education, your future. Instead, it looks like she used it to build her own comfortable life while keeping you in poverty. Zara was silent, processing this information. I don't understand. How did she? Why would she? I don't know yet, Chief Adebayo said. But Barrister Al-Yamid is going to find out. And whatever the reason, whatever lies Folake told herself to justify it, she's going to answer for what she did to you. Over the next few days, Barrister Al-Yamid worked his magic with financial records, and what he uncovered was even more damning than Chief Adebayo had imagined. Folake had indeed been depositing his monthly transfers into the account in Zara's name, but then she had been systematically transferring the money to her personal accounts and spending it freely. The 350 million Nigerian nairas mansion in Lekki Phase 1, purchased entirely with funds from Zara's account. 2 Range Rover sport vehicles, 45 million Nigerian nairas each, bought with Zara's money. Private school fees at Corona School for Folake's biological children, Nigerian naira 4 million per term per child, 24 million Nigerian nairas per year total, paid from Zara's account. Annual summer trips to Dubai, London, and Atlanta, staying in 5-star hotels, shopping at designer stores, all charged to Zara's account. Designer clothes from brands like Gucci and Louis Vuitton, expensive jewelry from Diamond Bank Plaza, regular spa treatments at the Wheatbaker Hotel. Everything paid for what money meant for Zara. Barrister Al-Yamid estimated that Folake had spent over 4.8 billion Nigerian nairas of the 5 billion Nigerian nairas sent over 20 years. The remaining 200 million Nigerian nairas sat in the account, untouched, probably kept there to make the records look legitimate if anyone ever checked. But the financial theft was only part of the story. Detective Emeka's investigation revealed a deeper, more calculated cruelty. Folake had deliberately isolated Zara from birth. The one-room apartment in Ajigunle, a slum area far from the mansion where Folake actually lived, had been Zara's entire world for 18 years. Neighbors remembered the quiet girl who was rarely allowed outside. The landlord, Mr. Okafor, recalled how Folake would visit monthly, always at night, always briefly, just to drop off minimal supplies. Homeschooling wasn't about providing quality education. It was about control. It kept Zara from making friends who might ask questions. It kept her away from teachers who might notice neglect. It kept her trapped with no knowledge of the outside world or her rights. Zara had taught herself to read using old newspapers and books she found in the trash. She had learned mathematics by counting the few kobo coins Folake occasionally left her. She had become educated despite Folake, not because of her. Folake had provided the bare minimum. Enough food to keep Zara alive, but never enough to satisfy hunger. A place to sleep, but no comfort. Basic clothes, but nothing that fit properly or looked decent. There was no love, no encouragement, no investment in Zara's future. And when Zara turned 18, Folake simply discarded her. According to Detective Emeka's interviews with the landlord and neighbors, on Zara's 18th birthday, Folake had shown up at the apartment with 2 men. She told Zara to pack her things. She had 30 minutes. When Zara asked where they were going, Folake laughed. Going? You're not going anywhere with me. You're 18 now, an adult. I've done my duty. Figure out your own life. She had thrust a framed photo of Adiz into Zara's hands. Here's your mother, since you loved her so much. Now get out. No birth certificate. No national ID card. No bank account. No money. No support system. Just abandonment. Chief Adebayo learned that Zara had spent the first 2 months after being thrown out sleeping in public parks and the National Library in Yaba. She had eventually found her way to Hope of Lagos shelter, where Mama Chidinma had recognized something special in the quiet, polite young woman who asked for nothing but was willing to work for everything. Now, living in the penthouse, Zara was slowly learning what it meant to be cared for. Ngozi made sure she ate regular meals and learned her preferences. Zara liked her eggs scrambled with tomatoes and onions, her tea with milk and 2 sugars, her bread toasted until it was almost burnt because that's how she had learned to eat the stale bread Folake occasionally left her. Chief Adebayo took time away from his business empire to sit with Zara, to tell her stories about Adiz. He pulled out photo albums he had kept hidden away in a locked cabinet, too painful to look at until now. Videos of Adiz as a child, running through their old house in GRA Acadia. As a teenager, winning her secondary school debate competition. Graduating from the University of Lagos with her nursing degree, her face glowing with pride. Meeting Tun at a friend's wedding. The way they looked at each other even in that first photo. Their traditional marriage ceremony. Adiz resplendent in coral beads and white lace. Videos of Adiz pregnant. Talking to her belly, telling her unborn daughter about the world she would inherit. Zara watched everything with hungry eyes, absorbing details about the mother she had been denied. Sometimes she cried silently, tears streaming down her face as she watched videos of Adiz laughing. Sometimes she smiled, seeing features she recognized in herself. Always, she listened as Chief Adebayo shared memories. "Your mother had this laugh," he said one evening, both of them looking at old photos. It started as a giggle and then just exploded into this full, joyful sound that made everyone around her happy. She couldn't tell a joke to save her life, but she laughed at everything. Tund used to say that was what he loved most about her, her ability to find joy in small things. "I wish I could have known her," Zara whispered. "She would have loved you so much," Chief Adebayo said, his voice breaking. "She wanted you so desperately." Even after Tun died, even through her grief, she held on because she wanted to meet you. Her last words, before the complications got too severe, were, "Take care of my baby. Tell her I loved her." "I failed to do that, Zara. I failed to take care of you the way I promised. But I'm going to do everything in my power to make the rest of your life what it should have been from the beginning." 2 weeks after finding Zara, Chief Adebayo decided it was time to confront Folake face to face. His lawyers advised against it, said to let the courts handle everything, that personal confrontations only complicated legal proceedings. But Chief Adebayo needed to look her in the eye, needed to understand how someone could be so cruel to an innocent child, needed Folake to see what she had done standing right in front of her. "You don't have to come," he told Zara. "I can handle this alone." But Zara's jaw set with determination. "She stole my life, grandfather. I deserve to be there. I deserve to look her in the eye when she has to answer for it." Wait. So for 18 years, this woman kept Zara locked in a one-room apartment in a slum while she lived in a 350 Nigerian Nairas million mansion. She spent 4.8 billion Nigerian Nairas of Zara's money on designer bags, fancy cars, and trips to Dubai, while Zara was eating from the trash. And then on her 18th birthday, she just threw her out like garbage. If you're shaking with anger right now, smash that like button. Subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Comment, what punishment does Folake deserve for this evil? Next chapter is a confrontation you've been waiting for. Chief Adebayo and Zara go to that mansion bought with stolen money, and the look on Folake's face when she sees them. Priceless. Share this now. Turn on notifications. They drove to Lekki on a hot Saturday morning. The kind of day where Lagos's humidity made the air feel thick enough to swim through. Chief Adebayo sat in the back of the Mercedes with Zara beside him, while Detective Emeka and Barrister Alyamide followed in a second vehicle. They were prepared, legal documents, bank statements, 20 years of evidence compiled into folders that would destroy Folake's lies. The mansion sat on a tree-lined street in Lekki Phase 1, where houses cost hundreds of millions and neighbors valued their privacy above community. High walls surrounded each property, topped with electric fencing and security cameras. This was where Nigeria's elite lived: politicians, oil executives, successful business owners who had made their fortunes and wanted to display their success. Chief Adebayo had paid for this house without even knowing it existed. Every brick, every tile, every fixture had been bought with money meant for his granddaughter's future. 2 Range Rovers sat in the circular driveway, gleaming black and silver, probably worth 90 million Nigerian Nairas combined. Zara stared at them through the car window, her expression unreadable. This was what her life could have been, what should have been. Instead, she had eaten from trash bins and slept in shelters, while Folake drove luxury vehicles bought with Zara's inheritance. Chief Adebayo's Mercedes pulled up behind the Range Rovers, and the 4 of them got out. The morning sun beat down mercilessly, but Chief Adebayo felt cold inside, his rage at ice in his chest. He rang the doorbell, an elaborate chime that probably cost more than most Nigerians earned a year. They waited through the frosted glass panels beside the door. Chief Adebayo could see someone approaching, probably expecting a delivery, or perhaps the gardener coming to discuss the lawn. The door opened, and Folick stood there, her expression transforming from casual annoyance to absolute shock in the space of a heartbeat. She had clearly been preparing for a day at home. She wore expensive loungewear, her hair wrapped in a silk bonnet, gold jewelry glinting at her wrists and neck. Behind her, the marble entryway of the mansion stretched back, cool and spacious, and bought with blood money. She had expected a deliverer man. Instead, she found herself staring at Chief Adebayo Ogunleye, the man she'd been lying to for 20 years. And then she saw Zara standing beside him, not the discarded girl in donated clothes, but a young woman in a proper dress and shoes, standing tall, her hair professionally styled, looking like exactly what she was, the granddaughter of a billionaire who had been denied her birthright. The blood drained from Folick's face so quickly Chief Adebayo thought she might faint. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish on dry land, no sound coming out. "Hello, Folick," Chief Adebayo said with cold courtesy. "I think we need to talk." Folick tried to close the door, pure panic making her react without thinking. But Barrister Alumide was already pushing forward with legal authority. "Mrs. Adeyemi, you can speak with us now, or you can speak with the police. Your choice, but you will speak." They ended up in Folick's living room, a space decorated with African art and expensive furniture that screamed wealth and taste. The marble floors were spotless, the air conditioning set to a comfortable chill. Through French doors, Chief Adebayo could see a swimming pool in the backyard, crystal blue water sparkling in the sun. Everything in this house had been purchased with stolen money, and the knowledge sat between them like poison. Folick perched on the edge of a white leather sofa, her hands twisting in her lap. She kept glancing at Zara as if she couldn't quite believe the girl had found her way back, had found someone to believe her, had become something more than the broken victim Folick had tried to create. "Chief, please," Folick started, her voice taking on a pleading tone that probably worked on lesser men. "Let me explain. It's not what you think. I can make you understand." Chief Adebayo slammed a folder of bank statements onto the glass coffee table so hard that Folick flinched and a decorative vase nearly toppled. 5 billion Nigerian nairas, he said, his voice deadly quiet, each word enunciated with precision. 20 years of monthly deposits. 20 million Nigerian nairas. Every single month. Never late, never missed. Every kobo I sent to ensure my granddaughter had the life she deserved. Where is it, Folick? Where is every single kobo? Folick's face had gone from pale to an ashen gray that made her look ill. Her hands trembled visibly. I use it for Zara's benefit, she said, but the lies sounded weak even to her own ears. The money went to her care, her upkeep. Did it? Chief Adebayo leaned forward, his fury barely contained. Because my investigators tell a very different story. They tell me you bought this house. He gestured around them. This 350 million Nigerian nairas mansion with money from Zara's account. They tell me you bought those Range Rovers outside with Zara's money. They tell me you sent your own biological children to Corona School at 4 million Nigerian nairas per term per child, while Zara couldn't even attend regular school. They tell me you took trips to Dubai and London every year, staying in 5-star hotels, shopping at Harrods and the Dubai Mall, all charged to Zara's account. So tell me again how you used the money for her benefit. I gave her a place to live. Folick's voice rose, defensive and angry now. I fed her. I kept a roof over her head for 18 years. That cost money, Chief. You think raising a child is free? Zara spoke up for the first time, her voice steady despite the emotion underneath. You kept me in a one-room apartment in Ajigunle, a slum, Aunt Folick, while you lived here. You gave me your leftover food, and only when you remembered. Sometimes I went days without eating. You gave me clothes your daughter had thrown away, clothes that didn't fit, that were worn out. You never let me leave except to go with you to buy groceries. And even then you watched me like I might run away and tell someone. You homeschooled me so I couldn't make friends, couldn't talk to teachers, couldn't let anyone know I existed. And when I turned 18, you threw me out with nothing. No documents, no money, no help. You gave me one picture of my mother and told me to figure out my own life. You said your Christian duty was done. Folake's eyes flashed with anger, the mask finally dropping completely. You ungrateful little witch, she spat, her Yoruba accent thickening with rage. I took you and when no one else wanted you. I raised you when your grandfather was too busy counting his billions to care about you. I could have left you in an orphanage, but I didn't. You should be on your knees thanking me. That's a lie. Chief Adebayo's voice rose to match hers. I called you every month. I asked about her. You told me she was doing well, that she was happy, that she was thriving. You told me she didn't want to see me because it would confuse her, that I should wait until she was older. You built a wall of lies between me and my granddaughter, and you did it so you could steal without anyone checking. And you believed me. Folake shot back, standing now, her body shaking with rage and fear. You never bothered to verify. You never demanded to see her. You never came to the so-called apartment you now claim she lived in. You were content to throw money at the problem and ease your guilty conscience. So don't act like you're some kind of hero now. Chief Adebayo, you're just as much to blame. The accusation stung because it held truth. Chief Adebayo had failed to verify, to insist, to be more than a monthly bank transfer. But that didn't excuse what Folake had done. You're right, Chief Adebayo said quietly, and the admission seemed to surprise everyone in the room. I failed Zara by not doing more. I will have to live with that guilt for the rest of my life. But you, Folake, you deliberately stole from a child. You isolated her, you neglected her, you psychologically abused her, and you threw her away when she was no longer useful to you. Why? Why would you do this to an innocent child? What did she ever do to you? Something broke in Folake's expression. Years of careful lies and self-justifications crumbled, and underneath was pure, ugly resentment that had been festering for decades. Because she had everything. Folake shouted, no longer caring who heard. Beautiful at ease with her perfect life. My brother Tund loved her more than he ever loved me, his own blood sister. She got the education, the good job, the husband who worshipped the ground she walked on. And I got what? A useless husband who ran off to South Africa and never sent money back. Children to feed on a teacher's salary. Struggling while my younger brother and his wife lived comfortable lives. Her chest heaved with the force of her emotions. And then they both died, and suddenly everyone cared about the baby. You sent money, Chief. So much money. More money than I had ever seen in my entire life. And I thought, why should this child, this baby who killed my brother's wife, why should she have everything when my own children had so little? Why should Adi's daughter have advantages my children never got? So yes, I took the money. I used it to give my children the life they deserved. I sent them to good schools, bought them a proper house, gave them opportunities. And I'm not sorry. My children deserved it more than she did. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop humming. Chief Adebayo stared at Folake, finally understanding the depths of her selfishness and the twisted logic she had used to justify 20 years of cruelty. So you stole from a baby, Chief Adebayo said, his disgust evident in every word. You saw a vulnerable infant who had lost both parents, and you decided to use her as your meal ticket. You took money meant to give her opportunities and used it to build your own comfortable life, all while telling her she was worthless, that her own grandfather didn't want her. You destroyed a child's entire childhood because of your resentment toward her dead mother. Folake's face was splotchy now, mascara running from tears of frustration and anger, not remorse. I gave her a place to live. I kept her fed and clothed. That should be enough. She should be grateful she wasn't left on the street. Zara stood up, her voice shaking but strong, every word cutting through Folake's delusions. Grateful? You want me to be grateful that you gave me scraps while you lived in a mansion bought with my money? You want me to be grateful that you lied to me about my grandfather? Made me think I was completely alone in the world with no family. Who cared? You want me to be grateful that you isolated me, that you treated me like a prisoner, that you threw me out to survive on the streets the moment I turned 18? The moment I was no longer useful for getting money? Before Folake could respond, Barrister Alyamide made a phone call. Within 20 minutes, police vehicles pulled up outside the mansion. Officers from the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, came prepared with warrants and documentation. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records showing the systematic transfer of funds from Zara's trust account to Folake's personal accounts. Property records showing the mansion, the cars, everything purchased with Zara's money. Witness statements from neighbors in Adjugunle who remembered the isolated girl they rarely saw. The landlord's testimony about Folake's monthly visits and the minimal supplies she provided. Mama Chidimma's statement about the condition Zara was in when she arrived at the shelter, malnourished, traumatized, with no resources or support. Folake was arrested on charges of embezzlement, fraud, identity theft, child endangerment, and theft by conversion. As EFCC officers let her out in handcuffs, her 2 children came down the stairs, alerted by the commotion. They were teenagers now, 16 and 18, dressed in designer clothes, living lives funded by their cousin's stolen inheritance. They watched in confusion and horror as their mother was taken away, reality crashing down on the comfortable world they had always known. They had lived well, attended the best schools, vacationed abroad, never wanted for anything. And they had no idea it was all built on stolen money and a cousin's suffering. A cousin whose existence they barely knew about because their mother had kept Zara hidden like a shameful secret. Chief Adebayo made arrangements for those children to stay with their maternal aunt in Ibadan. They were innocent in this, victims of their mother's choices in a different way. He would ensure they were cared for, that they could finish their education. But his priority, his focus, his mission now was Zara, making up for 20 lost years, giving her the future that should have been hers from the beginning. As they drove away from a mansion, Zara was quiet, staring out the window at Lecky passing by. Chief Adebayo reached over and took her hand. Squeeze it gently. "It's over," he said softly. "The lies are over. The suffering is over. Now we begin the healing." Zara looked at him, tears finally falling. "I still can't believe it's real. That you're real. That I'm not alone anymore." "You're not alone," Chief Adebayo promised. "You never will be again. I failed you once. I won't fail you again." That evening, back in the Victoria Island penthouse, Zara sat with Ngozi in the kitchen while the housekeeper prepared dinner. A special meal of Zara's favorites that she had discovered over the past 2 weeks. Grilled fish with peppered sauce, fried plantain, jollof rice, and coleslaw. "You did well today," Ngozi said, stirring the jollof rice. "Standing up to that woman. Telling your truth. Your mother would be proud." "I was scared," Zara admitted. "Seeing her again after everything. Part of me wanted to run away." "But you didn't. You stood your ground. That's what matters." And then Chief Adebayo joined them, his phone finally silent after hours of calls, to his lawyers, to the bank, to business partners who needed to know he would be taking time away from the company. His priority had shifted. Business could wait. His granddaughter couldn't. They sat together at the dining table, the 3 of them, and for the first time in 20 years, Zara shared a meal with family. Real family. People who cared whether she was happy, whether she had enough to eat, whether she felt safe. "Tomorrow," Chief Adebayo said, "we're going to the National Identity Management Commission. We're going to get you a national ID card, a passport, all the documents Folake denied you. We're going to make you legally visible. And then we're going to start planning your future. University applications, wherever you want to study, wherever you want to go. The world is open to you now, Zara." Finally, Zara looked around the table, at her grandfather who had found her, at Ngozi who modeled her, at the life that was slowly becoming real instead of just a dream. She thought about the girl she had been 2 weeks ago, washing dishes a hope of Legos, believing she had no one and nothing. "Can I ask you something, grandfather?" Zara said quietly. "Anything." "Will you tell me more about my mother? About my father? I want to know everything. I want to know who I come from." Chief Adebayo smiled, his eyes glistening with emotion. I will tell you everything, my dear. Every story, every memory. You deserve to know the incredible people you come from. And you deserve to know that you've inherited the best of both of them, your mother's kindness and your father's strength. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Lagos glittered in the darkness, millions of lights representing millions of lives. Somewhere out there, Folake sat in an EFCC detention cell. Her comfortable world collapsed around her. But in the penthouse, three people who had found each other against impossible odds shared a meal and began the slow, difficult, beautiful work of becoming a family. Are you serious right now? Folake admitted it. She said, my children deserved it more than she did. This woman stole 5 billion Nigerian nairas from an orphan because she was jealous of her dead sister-in-law. She kept a child in poverty while her own kids lived in luxury. And she's not even sorry. If your blood is boiling, hit that like button. Subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Drop a comment. Is arresting her enough punishment? What else should happen to people who steal from children? Next chapter reveals the trial, and trust me, the evidence is so damning that even Folake's own lawyers abandon her. Share this video. Turn on all notifications. Justice is coming. The trial happened faster than most because the evidence was overwhelming. The defendant was caught red-handed. And the presiding judge, Justice Obayomi, had a reputation for despising crimes against children. The Lagos High Court assigned the case priority status, and within 6 weeks of Folake's arrest, the trial began at the Federal High Court in Ikoyi. Chief Adebayo sat in the front row of the courtroom gallery, Zara beside him, as Folake was led in wearing the standard-issue clothing from Kirikiri prison, where she had been held pending trial. Gone were the designer outfits and gold jewelry. Her hair, usually perfectly styled, was now covered with a simple headscarf. She looked smaller somehow, diminished without the trappings of stolen wealth. Barrister Alumide led the prosecution team, a group of Nigeria's finest legal minds who had volunteered their services when they heard about the case. The defense had gone through 3 different law firms. The first 2 had quit after reviewing the evidence, unwilling to attach their reputations to such an indefensible case. The charges were read aloud: embezzlement of 4.8 billion Nigerian nairas, fraud, identity theft, child endangerment, death by conversion, and forgery of documents. Each charge carried significant prison time. Combined, Folake was looking at potentially 25 to 30 years in prison. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating. Barrister Alumide presented 20 years of bank records, each one showing the monthly 20 million Nigerian nairas deposit from Chief Adebayo's accounts into the trust account in Zara's name, and then the immediate transfers to Folake's personal accounts. The pattern was consistent, undeniable, damning. Financial experts testified about the purchases made with the stolen money. A forensic accountant walked the court through every major expense, matching them to withdrawals from Folake's accounts that had been funded by Zara's trust. The 350 million Nigerian nairas mansion in Lekki, purchased August 14, 2018, down payment of 100 million Nigerian nairas transferred from Folake's account 3 days after she moved 120 million Nigerian nairas from Zara's trust. The Range Rovers, bought in 2019 and 2021, 45 million Nigerian nairas each, both purchased within days of large transfers from Zara's account. School fees at Corona School. The accountant showed 8 years of tuition payments, each one corresponding to transfers from Zara's trust within the same week. International trips. The prosecution presented passport stamps, hotel receipts, and credit card statements showing luxury vacations to Dubai, London, Atlanta, and Johannesburg. Every trip coincided with large withdrawals from Zara's account. Designer purchases. Receipts from Saks Fifth Avenue in London, luxury boutiques in Dubai, high-end stores in Victoria Island, all paid for with money that should have been providing for Zara. But the most damning testimony came from the witnesses who spoke about Zara's actual living conditions while this theft was happening. Mr. Okafor, the elderly landlord from Ajigunle, took the stand. He was a grandfather himself, and his voice shook with anger as he testified. I rented that one-room apartment to Mrs. Adeyemi in 2004, he said, looking directly at Folake. She said it was for storage, but then I saw the baby. Small girl, maybe 6 months old. Mrs. Adeyemi said the child's mother died, that she was caring for her temporarily, but that temporary lasted 18 years. He described Folake's monthly visits, always at night, always brief. She would arrive with a bag of basic supplies. Cheap rice, tinned tomatoes, sardines, bread, sometimes used clothes. She never stayed more than 30 minutes. She never showed affection to the child. She treated it like a business transaction. The girl was like a ghost, Mr. Okafor continued. So quiet, so careful. She never made noise, never caused trouble. Sometimes I would hear her crying at night, soft, like she was trying not to disturb anyone. Other times, I would see her looking out the window, just watching the world go by like she was in prison. When I tried to talk to her, she would be afraid, like she thought she was in trouble. That woman, he pointed at Folake, kept that child like prisoner. Neighbors from the adjugunal apartment building testified next. Mrs. Adebisi, who had lived across the hall, described seeing Zara maybe 3 or 4 times a year, always when she would go with Folake to buy groceries. The child never smiled, Mrs. Adebisi said, never played with other children, never went to school like normal children. She was thin, very thin, wearing clothes that didn't fit properly. I asked Mrs. Adeyemi one time if the child was okay. If she needed help, she told me to mind my business, that the girl had special needs and couldn't be around other people. But I saw that girl's eyes. She didn't have special needs. She had sadness, deep sadness. Then Mama Chidinma took the stand, her testimony shifting the courtroom's energy from anger to heartbreak. She described the day Zara arrived at Hope of Lagos shelter 2 years ago. She came to us with nothing. Mama Chidinma said, her voice strong but emotional. No bag, no extra clothes, no money. Just the clothes on her body and one picture in a broken frame. She was hungry. I could see it in her face, in how her eyes followed the food when we were serving dinner. But she didn't ask for anything. She waited until everyone else had eaten, then asked politely if there were any leftovers. Any leftovers. Mama Chidinma described how Zara had offered to work for her meals, how she had volunteered for the hardest jobs, cleaning toilets, scrubbing floors, washing dishes. Anything to earn her place. How she had been terrified of being thrown out, of being told she was a burden. This child had been taught that her existence was a problem. Mama Chidinma said, tears running down her face. She apologized for everything, for taking up space, for eating food, for existing. It took months before she stopped asking permission to use the bathroom, before she stopped hiding food in her pockets, because she was afraid there wouldn't be more tomorrow. This is what Mrs. Adeyemi did to this child. She didn't just steal money. She stole childhood, stole hope, stole the basic human dignity every child deserves. The courtroom was silent, except for the sound of people crying. Several jury members wiped their eyes. Even the court stenographer had tears streaming down her face as she typed. But the most powerful testimony came from Zara herself. Barrister Alyamide had prepared her carefully. But nothing could fully prepare someone to sit in a witness box and recount 20 years of suffering. Zara wore a simple but elegant dress that Ngozi had helped her choose. Her hair was styled professionally, and she carried herself with quiet dignity. But when she began to speak, everyone could hear the tremor in her voice, the weight of what she was about to reveal. I was raised believing I was a burden, Zara began, her voice soft but clear. Aunt Folake told me from my earliest memories that my mother died because of me, that my grandfather hated me for killing his daughter, that I should be grateful she took me in when no one else wanted me. I believed her. I had no reason not to believe her. She was the only person in my entire world. She described the one-room apartment, no bigger than 15 by 15 feet, that had been her entire world for 18 years. The thin mat she slept on, the few clothes she had, always hand-me-downs that didn't fit. The homeschooling that consisted of old textbooks Folake would leave once or twice a year, with instructions for Zara to teach herself. I taught myself to read from newspapers I found in the trash, Zara said. I learned mathematics by counting the few coins Aunt Folake sometimes left. I learned about the world from looking out the window and imagining what it would be like to actually live in it, to be part of it instead of just watching. She described the isolation, how she would go weeks without seeing another person except Mr. Okafor or occasionally a neighbor in the hallway, how she wasn't allowed to go outside alone, wasn't allowed to make friends, wasn't allowed to ask questions about her family or her history. She told me my grandfather was a rich man who wanted nothing to do with me. Zara continued, her voice breaking slightly. She said he only sent money because it eased his conscience, but that he had made it clear he never wanted to see me, that my face reminded him too much of the daughter I killed. She said if I ever tried to contact him, he would have me arrested for harassment. I believed her. I believed I was this terrible mistake, this burden, this person who didn't deserve anything better than what I had. She described turning 18. The hope she had felt that maybe things would change, that maybe she could finally go to school, get a job, have a life. And then Folake's arrival with two men she didn't explain. She gave me 30 minutes to pack my things. Zara said, her voice stronger now, anger cutting through the pain. I asked where we were going. She laughed. She said, we're not going anywhere. You're 18 now, an adult. My duty is done. Figure out your own life. She gave me one picture of my mother, the only picture I'd ever seen, and told me to leave. When I asked where I should go, what I should do, she said, that's not my problem anymore. You should have died with your mother. At least then you wouldn't be anybody's burden. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, angry murmurs, several people shouting at Folake. Justice Nwachukwu had to bang her gavel repeatedly to restore order. And you had no documents? Barrister Al-Yamid asked gently. No birth certificate, no national ID, no passport? Nothing, Zara confirmed. She never gave me any documents. I didn't even know my full name until I got to the shelter. And Mama Chidima helped me apply for documents. I didn't know my parents' full names, or when they died, or anything about my family. I was nobody. I didn't officially exist. The prosecution rested its case. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, property documents, witness testimonies, and Zara's own heartbreaking account. There was no room for doubt, no space for alternative explanations. The defense team, the third firm to take the case, tried their best with what little they had. They argued that Folake had provided for Zara, that she had given the child housing and food for 18 years, that this should count for something. They tried to suggest that Chief Adebayo's own negligence, his failure to verify Zara's well-being, made him partially responsible. But when Folake herself took the stand, even her own lawyers seemed to give up hope. Under cross-examination by Barrister Al-Yamid, Folake tried to maintain her justifications, but they crumbled under the weight of documented evidence. He presented her with bank statements, asked her to explain specific transactions. Mrs. Adeyemi, this statement shows that on June 3, 2019, you transferred 45 million Nigerian nairas from Zara's trust account to your personal account. 3 days later, you purchased a Range Rover Sport for exactly 45 million Nigerian nairas. Can you explain how this purchase benefited Zara? I needed transportation to check on her, Folake said weakly. Check on her? The records show you visited her apartment in Ajigunle maybe once a month for less than 30 minutes. You needed a 45 million Nigerian nairas vehicle to make a 30-minute visit once a month. Folake had no answer. And this transaction, Barrister Al-Yamid continued. December 12, 2020. Transfer of 8 million Nigerian nairas from Zara's account. 5 days later, school fees paid for your 2 biological children at Corona School for a million Nigerian nairas each. How did sending your own children to expensive private school benefit Zara, who wasn't even attending basic primary school? They were like siblings to her. Folake tried. Siblings she never met? Because according to your own children's testimony during investigation, they didn't even know they had a cousin until she was 18 years old. You kept Zara hidden from your own family, didn't you? Yes, but... And this transaction. March 2018. Transfer of 100 million Nigerian nairas from Zara's account. August 2018. You purchased a 350 million Nigerian nairas mansion in Lekki Phase 1. Can you explain how buying yourself a mansion benefited Zara, who was living in a one-room apartment in a slum? The courtroom was silent, Folake's mouth open and closed, but no words came out that could possibly justify what the numbers showed. You have no explanation, do you, Mrs. Adeyemi? Because there is no explanation except the truth. You systematically stole from a helpless child to fund your own lavish lifestyle. You use her money to buy cars, houses, luxury goods, and expensive educations for your own children, while you kept her in poverty, isolation, and ignorance. Isn't that the truth? I gave her a place to live. Folake finally shouted, her composure completely breaking. I fed her. I could have left her in an orphanage. I could have done nothing. But I took her in. That should count for something. You took her in, Barrister Alumide said coldly, because she came with 20 million Nigerian nairas monthly. You took her in because you saw an opportunity to enrich yourself while pretending to be charitable. You didn't save her from an orphanage, Mrs. Adeyemi. You created a prison far worse, because you did while pretending to be family, while making her believe she deserved nothing better, while stealing her entire future. The defense had nothing. They called no other witnesses, presented no contradicting evidence, made no closing argument that could overcome a mountain of proof against their client. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood and read the verdict with a steady voice. We find defendant Folake Adeyemi guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted in applause. Chief Adebayo squeezed Zara's hand as she quietly cried tears of relief and vindication. Justice, finally. 2 weeks later, they returned for sentencing. Justice Nwachukwu looked down at Folake with unconcealed disgust. Mrs. Adeyemi, in my 30 years on the bench, I have seen many terrible things, but few crimes have disturbed me as deeply as yours. You didn't just steal money, you stole a childhood, stole a future, stole the basic dignity and love every child deserves. You looked at a helpless infant who had lost both parents and saw only a source of income. You spent 20 years lying to that child, isolating her, breaking her spirit, all while living in luxury funded by her stolen inheritance. This court finds your actions unconscionable and deserving of the maximum penalty allowed by law. Justice Nwachukwu sentenced Folake to 15 years in Kirikiri maximum security prison with no possibility of early parole. She was ordered to pay full restitution of 5 billion Nigerian nairas plus 2 billion Nigerian nairas in damages and emotional distress, totaling 7 billion Nigerian nairas. All her assets were to be seized and liquidated. The mansion, the cars, jewelry, bank accounts, everything. The funds recovered would be placed in a new trust for Zara, this time properly protected with oversight from 3 independent trustees and quarterly audits. Additionally, Folake was permanently barred from having any contact with Zara or claiming any relationship to the Ogunlai family. As EFCC officers led Folake out of the courtroom to begin her 15-year sentence, she looked back at Zara one last time. There was no remorse in her eyes, no apology, just bitter resentment that she had been caught, that her comfortable life had been destroyed. Zara stared back calmly, no longer the frightened girl who believed every lie, who had accepted scraps and called it kindness. She was free now, not just legally, but emotionally. Folake no longer had power over her. Outside the courthouse, reporters and cameras swarmed, all wanting statements from Chief Adebayo and Zara. But Barrister Alumide handled them professionally, reading a prepared statement while Chief Adebayo and Zara slipped away to the waiting car. "How do you feel?" Chief Adebayo asked Zara as they drove back to Victoria Island. Zara was quiet for a long moment, watching Lagos pass by the windows. "I feel light," she finally said. "Like something heavy I didn't even know I was carrying has been lifted. She can't hurt me anymore. The lies can't hurt me anymore. And I have you. I have Ani Ngozi. I have a future. That's more than I ever dreamed was possible." Chief Adebayo pulled her into a hug, right there in the back seat of the moving car. "You have so much more than that, my dear. You have strength, intelligence, resilience. You survived 20 years of cruelty and came through it with your humanity intact. That's extraordinary. Your mother will be so proud of who you become despite everything." That evening, back at the penthouse, they celebrated quietly. Zara, Chief Adebayo Ngozi, Detective Emeka, Barrister Alyamide, and Mama Chidinma, who had become like family. They ate Ngozi's special cooking and talked about the future, about possibilities, about healing. "What do you want to do now?" Chief Adebayo asked Zara. "The world is open to you. University? Travel? Whatever you want, we'll make it happen." Zara smiled, the first truly carefree smile Chief Adebayo had seen from her. "I want to go to university," she said. "I want to study social work. I want to help other young people like me, people aging out of foster care, people experiencing homelessness, people who have been made to feel invisible. I want to be the voice I never had." Chief Adebayo felt his heart swell with pride. After everything she had survived, Zara wanted to use her experience to help others. That was the spirit of Adiz, the compassion of Tund, living on in their daughter. "Then that's what we'll do," he promised. "And I'll establish a foundation in your mother's name. The Adiz Ogunlai Foundation for Vulnerable Youth. We'll fund it properly, staff it well, make real change. And you can be part of it, shape it, make it what you want it to be." Zara's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Really? Really? Your suffering wasn't in vain, Zara. We're going to make sure no other child experiences what you did. We're going to turn your pain into purpose." And in that moment, surrounded by people who loved her, planning a future that finally belonged to her, Zara understood something profound. Folek had tried to break her, to make her believe she was worthless, that she deserved nothing. But Folek had failed. Zara had survived, and now she would thrive. Not despite what happened, but because of what she learned from it, that she was stronger than she knew, that she deserved everything good, that her past didn't define her future. Justice had been served. Now healing could truly begin. 15 years in Kirikiri prison, 7 billion Nigerian nairas in damages, all her assets seized. This woman thought she could steal from a child and get away with it. But Chief Adebayo made sure she paid for every single day of Zara's suffering. If you're celebrating this justice, smash that like button. Subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Comment, is 15 years enough, or should she have gotten more? Chapter 5 is a beautiful finale. You'll see Zara's incredible transformation, the Scholarship Foundation, and where everyone is now. This is going to make you cry happy tears. Share this video with everyone. Turn on notifications. The final chapter will inspire. 3 years after the trial, Lagos gleamed under the morning sun as Chief Adebayo stood on the balcony of his Victoria Island penthouse, coffee in hand, watching the city wake up. At 78 years old, he had accomplished more in the past 3 years than many people accomplish in a lifetime. Not in business, though his empire continued to thrive, but in the ways that truly mattered. He had become the grandfather he should have been from the beginning. Inside, he could hear Zara moving around her room, getting ready for her day. She was now 23 years old, in her final year at the University of Lagos studying social work with a minor in psychology. She had been an exceptional student from the start, as if 20 years of denied education had created a hunger for learning that couldn't be satisfied. She maintained a first-class grade point average while also volunteering, interning, and helping to run the foundation that bore her mother's name. Chief Adebayo heard Zara's door open and turned to see his granddaughter emerge, dressed in professional attire for a meeting at the foundation headquarters. She had grown into a confident young woman, no longer the frightened girl he'd found washing dishes in shelter. She wore her natural hair in elegant braids, carried herself with purpose, and most importantly, smiled easily and often, something she hadn't been able to do in those early days. "Morning, grandfather," Zara said, kissing his cheek as she grabbed an apple from the kitchen. "I'm heading to the foundation early today. We're meeting with that group from Abuja about expanding the scholarship program nationwide." Chief Adebayo felt pride surge through him. "You'll do brilliantly. You always do. What time will you be home? Ngozi is making that egusi soup you love. Should be back by 6. Oh, and don't forget we're visiting Mama Chidinma this weekend. She wants to show us the new expansion at Hope House." After Zara left, Chief Adebayo sat at his desk and pulled out the leather-bound journal he had been keeping since the trial. He had started it on the advice of the family therapist they had both been seeing, Dr. Funmaleo Adelik, who specialized in family trauma, and rebuilding relationships. He opened to a fresh page and began to write, as he did most mornings, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. The first year after finding Zara had been the hardest. Trust and rebuild overnight, and trauma didn't heal just because circumstances changed. Zara had suffered night terrors, anxiety attacks, and periods of deep depression where she couldn't believe her new life was real. Dr. Adelik had worked with her patiently, helping her process 20 years of psychological abuse, isolation, and abandonment. There had been difficult conversations where Zara had asked painful questions. Why didn't you check on me? Why did you believe her lies? Didn't you want to know me? Chief Adebayo had answered honestly, admitting his failures, his grief-driven cowardice, his mistaken belief that money could substitute for presence. He had apologized more times than he could count, and slowly, painfully, Zara had forgiven him, not because what he did was okay, but because she understood grief, understood how pain could make people make terrible choices, understood that holding on to anger would only hurt her more than it hurt him. The forgiveness had been a gift. One Chief Adebayo knew he didn't fully deserve but would spend the rest of his life honoring. Ngozi knocked on his study door, interrupting his writing. "Chief, Detective Emeka is here. He said you were expecting him." Chief Adebayo had indeed been expecting him. Detective Emeka had become more than just the investigator who found Zara. He had become a friend, a trusted advisor, and the head of security for the Foundation. He entered the study carrying a folder. "Good morning, Chief. I have the quarterly report on the Foundation's progress. I think you'll be pleased. The Adiz Ogunlai Foundation for Vulnerable Youth had been officially launched 2 years ago with an initial endowment of 500 million Nigerian nairas from Chief Adebayo, plus all the recovered assets from Folake's conviction. The Foundation's mission was clear: ensure that no child in Nigeria suffered the way Zara had suffered." Detective Emeka opened the folder and began reviewing the numbers. In just 2 years, the Foundation had provided full scholarships to 127 young people from shelters, orphanages, and extreme poverty. These weren't just tuition payments. They were comprehensive packages covering school fees, accommodation, books, food, counseling, and mentorship. Every recipient was paired with a professional mentor who met with them monthly, renovated and expanded 6 shelter facilities across Lagos, including Hope of Lagos where Zara had stayed. These facilities now provided not just emergency housing, but also vocational training, mental health services, and job placement assistance. Established the Second Chance Academy, a program that helped young adults aged 18 to 25 who had aged out of foster care or experienced homelessness get their WAC certificates, learn marketable skills, and transition to stable employment or further education. Create a legal aid clinic that helped vulnerable young people obtain birth certificates, national IDs, and other documents needed to fully participate in society. This was particularly meaningful to Zara, who remembered what it felt like to be invisible, to not officially exist. Launched a foster care monitoring system that worked with government agencies to ensure children in care were actually being cared for, with regular check-ins, surprise visits, and direct hotlines for children to report abuse. "The impact has been extraordinary," Detective Emeka said. "Just last week, I met a young woman named Blessing who came through our program. She was living on the streets 2 years ago. Now she's studying computer science at Covenant University on our scholarship. She told me this program saved her life." Chief Adebayo nodded, emotional as always when hearing these stories. Every life change felt like a small redemption for the 20 years Zara lost. They couldn't fix the past, but they could prevent it from happening to others. Later that day, Chief Adebayo drove to the Foundation's headquarters in Lekki. Yes, Lekki. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that they had purchased a building in the same area where Folake's stolen mansion had stood. That mansion had been sold. The proceeds going to the Foundation, and the new owners had torn it down to build something else. Folake's monument to theft and cruelty was gone, replaced by empty land that would eventually hold something better. The Foundation's building was modest but functional. 3 stories with offices, meeting rooms, and a counseling center. A large banner outside read, "The Adiz Ogunlai Foundation, because every child deserves a future." Inside, Zara was already in the conference room with the delegation from Abuja, officials from the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development, representatives from international NGOs, and several university administrators. They were discussing a proposal to expand the scholarship program to all 36 states in Nigeria. Chief Adebayo watched the glass wall as Zara presented, confident and articulate, using PowerPoint slides and statistics to make her case. She spoke about her own experience not with self-pity but with purpose, using her story to illustrate why this work mattered. "I was invisible for 20 years, she told the room. No one checked on me. No one verified I was okay. No one looked beyond the monthly money transfer to see if I was actually being cared for. The system failed me completely. But we can build a better system. We can create checks and balances that make it harder for vulnerable children to fall through the cracks. That's what this expansion is about: visibility, accountability, and giving children the resources and support they deserve." The room was silent when she finished, then burst into applause. The lead official from the ministry stood and shook Zara's hand. "Ms. Ogunleye, your proposal is approved. We'll allocate 2 billion Nigerian nairas from the federal budget to match your foundation's investment. Together, we'll scale this nationwide." After the meeting, as the visitors filed out, Zara collapsed into a chair, exhausted but exhilarated. Chief Adebayo joined her, handing her a bottle of water. "You were magnificent," he said. "Your mother would be so proud." "I wish she could see this," Zara said softly. "All of it. The foundation, the lives we're changing. I wish she knew that her death, as tragic as it was, led to something good eventually." "She knows," Chief Adebayo assured her. "I believe that, and I think Ton knows too. They're both proud of you, Zara. I'm sure of it." That weekend, as planned, they visited Hope of Lagos Shelter. Mama Chidinma greeted them at the door with her usual warm hug, though she was moving a bit slower these days at 70 years old. The expansion Chief Adebayo had funded was complete. A new wing with private family rooms, a computer lab, a commercial kitchen for vocational training, and a medical clinic staffed by volunteer nurses and doctors. Come, see what you built," Mama Chidinma said, leading them to the new facilities. Women and children filled the space, not as many as before, because the Foundation's Housing Assistance Program had helped many transition to stable homes. But those who were there looked different from the desperate, hopeless people Chief Adebayo remembered from 3 years ago. These women were taking computer classes. Their children were doing homework in the tutoring center. Everyone looked fed and hopeful. "This is a counseling wing," Mama Chidinma explained, showing them a series of private offices. "We have 3 therapists now, all volunteering their time, thanks to your foundation's partnerships. Every woman who comes through here gets mental health support. We've learned that you can't just give people housing and food. You have to heal the trauma, too." They stopped in front of a wall covered with photos and thank you notes from former residents. Chief Adebayo recognized some faces from the day he'd found Zara here. Women who'd been washing dishes alongside his granddaughter. Women who had been sleeping on mats, surviving day by day. Now the photos showed them in graduation gowns at new jobs, holding keys to their own apartments, smiling with their children in safe, stable environments. One photo caught Zara's attention. It was a woman she recognized from her time at the shelter, Chioma, who had slept on the mat next to hers, who had shared her food when Zara first arrived and didn't understand the shelter's routines. "Is that Chioma?" Zara asked, excited. "Is she doing okay?" "Oh, yes." Mama Chidinma beamed. "She completed the vocational training program your foundation sponsors. She's a professional caterer now, has her own small business. She's doing very well. In fact, she's catering our end-of-year celebration next month. You should come, both of you." They spent the afternoon at the shelter, Zara helping in the kitchen like old times, though now as a volunteer rather than someone earning her meal. The women who recognized her treated her like a celebrity, asking about university, about the foundation, about how she had survived her own nightmare and built such an incredible life. "You give us hope," one young woman told Zara. "When I see you, I remember that this isn't the end of my story. It's just a chapter. A hard chapter, but not the ending." That was exactly what Zara wanted to be, living proof that circumstances didn't define destiny, that suffering could be transformed into strength, that the worst chapters of life could lead to the best ones if you survived and kept fighting. On the drive back to Victoria Island, Zara was quiet, reflective. "Grandfather, can I ask you something?" "Of course, anything." "Do you ever think about Aunt Folake? About what happened to her?" Chief Adebayo was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes. Not with anger anymore. Mostly with sadness. She destroyed her own life through greed and resentment. She could have been part of something good, helping raise you, being real family. Instead, she chose cruelty and theft, and now she's paying the price. She's in prison. Her children barely speak to her. Her reputation is ruined. Everything she stole to build a comfortable life has been taken away. That's justice, but it's also tragedy." "I don't hate her anymore," Zara admitted. "I did for a long time. But Dr. Adelik helped me understand that holding on to that hate was only hurting me. Folake can't hurt me anymore. She's just someone who made terrible choices and has to live with the consequences. I've moved past her. That's maturity and healing," Chief Adebayo said proudly. "Your ability to forgive, to let go, to focus on building rather than destroying, that's extraordinary, Zara. That's who you really are, underneath everything that was done to you." A few months later, Chief Adebayo was invited to give a keynote speech at the African Business Leaders Summit in Accra, Ghana. But instead of talking about oil and gas, about markets and profits, he talked about family, about failure, about second chances. "I built an empire worth hundreds of billions," he told the assembled CEOs and entrepreneurs. "I have my name on buildings across 3 continents. Forbes has ranked me among Africa's wealthiest people. But I nearly lost the most important thing, my family. I let grief make me a coward. I let money substitute for presence. I sent checks when I should have sent love. And because of that, my granddaughter suffered for 20 years in ways I can barely comprehend." He paused, looking out at the audience. "Some of you are like I was. You work 80 hours a week building businesses and empires. You think providing financially is enough. You tell yourself you're doing it for your family. But let me tell you something I learned the hard way. Your children don't need your money as much as they need your presence. Your grandchildren don't need expensive gifts as much as they need your time. Success means nothing if the people you love don't know you love them." The speech went viral. News outlets across Africa covered it. Chief Adebayo received thousands of messages from people saying he had inspired them to reconnect with their families, to prioritize relationships over profits, to be present in ways they hadn't been before. But the message that mattered most came from Zara, who texted him while he was still in Accra. "Just watched your speech. Thank you for being honest about everything, the failures and the redemption. Thank you for choosing me. Finally, I love you, grandfather." Chief Adebayo read that message in his hotel room and cried. Tears of gratitude that he had been given a second chance, that Zara had survived with her capacity for love intact, that they had found each other before it was too late. 2 years later, Zara graduated from the University of Lagos with first-class honors in social work. The graduation ceremony was held at the university's massive auditorium, filled with proud families. Chief Adebayo sat in the front row alongside Ngozi, Detective Emeka, Barrister Alumide, Mama Chidinma, and several of Zara's friends from university and the foundation. When Zara's name was called, the entire section erupted in cheers. She walked across the stage to receive her degree, and Chief Adebayo noticed she was wearing something special around her neck, a delicate gold necklace that had belonged to Adiz, one of the few pieces of jewelry Chief Adebayo had kept. He had given it to Zara on her 21st birthday, along with letters Adiz had written while pregnant, letters addressed to my daughter that she had planned to give Zara when she was older. After the ceremony, as photographers snapped pictures of graduates with their families, Chief Adebayo stood with Zara, his arm around her shoulders. She held her degree certificate, smiling radiantly, no trace of the broken girl from 3 years ago. "I wish your mother and father could see you now," Chief Adebayo said, his voice thick with emotion. "They can," Zara said confidently. "I feel them with me every day. In every child we help to the foundation, in every lesson I learned about resilience and compassion, in every moment I choose hope over bitterness." They're here, grandfather. They're proud. I can feel it. The foundation continued to grow. Within 5 years of its founding, it had helped over 500 young people access education, provided housing assistance to 300 families, and partnered with the government to reform child welfare policies across Nigeria. Zara became the foundation's executive director on her 25th birthday, taking over day-to-day operations while Chief Adebayo served as chairman of the board. She was featured in magazines, invited to speak at conferences worldwide, and became a powerful advocate for vulnerable children, not just in Nigeria, but across Africa. She never married, though she dated occasionally. She often said she was too busy changing the world to settle down, though those close to her knew the real reason. Trust came hard after 20 years of betrayal, but she was happy, fulfilled, surrounded by chosen family and meaningful work. On the 10th anniversary of finding Zara, Chief Adebayo organized a special event at the Foundation headquarters. It was framed as a celebration of the Foundation's 10 years of impact, but it was really a celebration of survival, of resilience, of family found and rebuilt. The event brought together everyone who had been part of Zara's journey. The first scholarship recipients, who were now doctors, teachers, and engineers, former shelter residents who had rebuilt their lives, volunteers and staff who had dedicated themselves to the cause, government officials who had supported the work, and most importantly, survivors like Zara who had transformed their pain into purpose. Zara gave a speech that brought the entire room to tears. 10 years ago, I was washing dishes in a shelter, believing I was worthless, believing I deserved nothing better than scraps and survival, she began. I had been taught for 20 years that I was a burden, that my existence was a mistake, that I should be grateful for any kindness, however small. But then my grandfather found me, and finding me wasn't enough. He chose me. He chose to believe me, to fight for me, to give me not just money but presence, love, family. She looked directly at Chief Adebayo, who sat in the front row, tears streaming down his 85-year-old face. We can't change the past. Those 20 years are gone and nothing can give them back. But we can change the present and the future. Every child we help, every life we transform, every system we reform. That's how we honor the pain, how we make meaning from the suffering. This foundation exists because I survived, and it will continue to exist long after I'm gone, helping children who are invisible, who are suffering, who need someone to see them and choose them. The room stood in applause. Former scholarship recipients rushed forward to hug Zara, to thank her, to tell her how she had changed their lives. Parents whose children had been helped by the Foundation's programs wept with gratitude. It was beautiful, overwhelming, a testament to what was possible when pain was transformed into purpose. Later, after the guests had left and the staff was cleaning up, Chief Adebayo and Zara stood alone in the Foundation's memorial garden, a peaceful space they had created to honor Adiz and Tund and all the parents and children who had been lost too soon. A bronze plaque on the wall read, "In memory of Adiz, Ogunlayi, and Tund Adeyemi. They taught us that love transcends death, that family is more than blood, and that hope can survive even the darkest circumstances." This garden and this foundation are their legacy, continued through their daughter Zara. Do you think we've done enough? Zara asked quietly. To honor them, to make their deaths mean something? Chief Adebayo took her hand. Squeeze it gently. I think we've done beautifully. But more importantly, I think you become exactly who they hope you would be. Kind, strong, compassionate, resilient. Not despite what happened to you, but because of how you chose to respond to it. That's their real legacy, Zara. You! They stood together in the fading light, grandfather and granddaughter, survivors both, looking at all they had built from the ashes of tragedy and betrayal. The foundation would continue. More children would be helped. More lives would be changed. The work would never be finished, but it would always matter. And somewhere, in whatever comes after this life, Adiz and Tund smiled, knowing their daughter had not just survived. She had thrived, and in thriving, she had helped countless others do the same. Chief Adebayo had learned that redemption wasn't about erasing the past or fixing what was broken. It was about showing up day after day and choosing to do better. It was about turning failure into wisdom, grief into action, and regret into love. He had failed Zara for 20 years, but he had spent the last 10, and would spend whatever years remained trying to make up for those lost decades. Not because it would ever be enough, but because love demanded the effort, because family deserved the commitment, because Zara had given him the gift of a second chance, and he would honor that gift until his last breath. That night, back at the Victoria Island penthouse, Zara pulled out her laptop and began writing. She was working on a book, her memoir, tentatively titled Invisible No More, a story of survival, family, and second chances. Publishers were already interested, but she was writing it carefully, thoughtfully, wanting to get it right. Chief Adebayo brought her tea the way she liked it, with milk and 2 sugars, and kissed the top of her head the way he did every evening. "Don't stay up too late," he said. "You have that interview with CNN tomorrow morning." "I won't," Zara promised, smiling up at him. "Good night, grandfather. Good night, my dear girl. I love you. I love you, too." Chief Adebayo walked to his own room, his heart full in a way it hadn't been since before Dees died. He had lost so much. His wife, his daughter, his son-in-law, 20 years with his granddaughter. But he had been given something precious. A second chance to be the grandfather he should have been from the start. A chance to watch Zara grow into an extraordinary woman. A chance to turn his greatest failure into his greatest achievement. In her room, Zara typed the final lines of her book's epilogue. "My worth was never determined by how Folake treated me, or by the 20 years I spent believing I deserved nothing better. My worth is inherent, unchangeable, mine, and now I use my voice, my experience, my survival, to tell other invisible children, you are seen, you are valued, you are worthy, and your story doesn't end with your suffering. It only begins there. The best chapters are still ahead. If you survive, if you fight, if you refuse to let cruelty win, I'm living proof. And I'm here to remind you, you are not invisible. Not anymore." She saved the document, closed her laptop, and looked out at Lagos glittering below, at the city that had held her suffering and now held her triumph. Tomorrow she would continue the work, helping more children, reforming more systems, ensuring no one else disappeared the way she had. But tonight, she would rest in the knowledge that she had survived, that she had been found, that she had chosen to transform her pain into purpose. And that was everything. 15 years later, this woman went from washing dishes in a shelter to founding a foundation that's helped thousands. She went from being invisible and worthless to becoming an international advocate. She went from having nothing to building everything. If the story of redemption and resilience doesn't make you believe in second chances, nothing will. Smash that like button. Subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Drop a comment. What's the biggest lesson you learned from Chief Adebayo and Zara's story? Your worth isn't determined by who failed you. It's determined by how you rise. Share this complete story with everyone who needs hope. Your past is not your future. Turn on all notifications. We have more powerful African stories coming. Thank you for watching this incredible journey from beginning to Yendi. Remember, you are not invisible. You are worthy. You are seen.